Artem had always believed he had the perfect formula for happiness. Vika and Maxim, not two halves, but two sturdy pillars supporting his world. Vika was his wife. They shared their bed, dreams, and mortgage. A person who knew him by his first smile and his last breath. Maxim was his friend since kindergarten, a chosen brother, the only person Artem trusted with his bank pin and his silliest fears. Their Friday nights were a ritual: 4-cheese pizza, an old movie, and conversations in the kitchen that always ended either in a football argument or shared memories from youth. Artem would watch Vika tease Maxim about his perpetual mésalliances and think, this is it, trust. This is more precious than money, more precious than fame. He was convinced that these three could withstand anything. Their fortress was impregnable because its foundation was absolute, unbreakable trust. But over the last few weeks, cracks began to spread. At first he thought he was imagining it. Maxim, who usually burst into their apartment like a hurricane, now knocked softly and always asked, "Is Vika home?" Artem noticed that both of them were constantly on their phones. Where they used to discuss news together, now they exchanged long, mysterious glances, after which Vika would suddenly say, "Oh, I need to run to the store, or I have to answer a work email." Once, Artem walked into the living room and found them hunched over a laptop. They flinched like caught teenagers. "What are you watching?" Artem asked, trying to sound casual. Maxim quickly slammed the lid shut. "Oh, just work stuff. New project." "You'd be bored." "I'd be bored," Artem repeated to himself. They used to share even the boring work stuff. Vika started avoiding intimacy, citing tiredness. Her hand no longer sought his when they walked. Maxim stopped looking Artem in the eye. His gaze skimmed the floor, the wall, anything but his best friend's face. The inner voice that Artem had suppressed for the last 10 days had turned into a persistent, chilling whisper. It was not suspicion. It was a certainty that lacked logical proof but burned his gut. His fortress was settling. Artem returned home early. He had called out of work, saying he felt sick. In truth, he felt too well, too clear-headed, to ignore the whisper. The key turned quietly in the lock. The apartment was silent, but Maxim's coat was hanging on the rack. Artem's heart did a painful somersault and froze, turning into a chunk of ice. He slowly took off his shoes. There were no shouts, no laughter, no music. Only a thick, viscous silence. He walked through the living room. The bedroom door was tightly shut. Artem, not knowing why, picked up the phone he had left in the hallway, supposedly to charge. He opened the trash folder in Vika's gallery. There, among the deleted photos, was one taken just a few hours ago, a selfie of Maxim and Vika. They were smiling the same slightly guilty smile. Lying in the bed Artem had bought for him and Vika. The pillow he had hugged just yesterday was under his friend's head. Artem felt no rage. Rage is fire, and he was only ice now. He didn't storm the bedroom or start shouting. He just stood in the hallway, holding the phone, the photo glaring on the screen. The shock was not in the fact itself, but in its absolute, total implausibility. It couldn't be real. It was a bad, cheap shot from a melodrama. But there they were, his wife and his brother in his bed, in his home with a smile he hadn't seen on their faces in a long time. He took 2 steps toward the bedroom door, and knocked softly with his knuckles. A normal, everyday knock. Silence, then a hurried rustling. Yes, Vika's voice was strained, too high. Artem opened the door. Vika was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing a bathrobe with wet fingertip marks on her cheeks. Maxim was standing by the window, pulling on his shirt. They both looked not like lovers caught in the act, but like children caught stealing candy. The shame was physically palpable. It hung in the air like a poisonous gas. Artem raised the phone. Without saying a word, he just showed them the screen. Maxim lowered his head. Vika covered her face with her hands. "Artem?" She started, but he stopped her with a gesture. His voice was calm, so calm it was frightening. "You, him, my home, my life. How long?" Maxim silently walked out of the room. He didn't apologize or try to justify himself. He simply left, leaving them alone. That was the last Artem saw of his best friend. Vika stood up. Tears streamed down her face. "It's not? It's not what you think." "I mean, it is, but not the way you think." She spoke quickly, rambling, trying to overwhelm him with a flood of words to conceal the emptiness of the fact. "It was only a few times. It just happened. We didn't want to hurt you. We didn't plan it." Artem sat in the armchair, trying to keep his body from shaking. "Happened?" He slowly shook his head. "You can accidentally drop a cup. You can accidentally get on the wrong bus. Vika, you can't accidentally destroy a decade of absolute trust." She approached him, trying to take his hand. He pulled away as if from fire. "I love you, Artem, truly. And what happened with Maxim doesn't cancel out." "It cancels it out." His voice became as hard as stone. He looked up. His eyes were completely empty. "It cancels everything? Our future, our past. Do you understand what you erased? You erased the me who believed in you. You erased the friend who was my brother." He stood up. "Go. Pack the things you need now. I will leave in the morning, and you can stay here until we sort out the apartment." She cried, pleaded, grabbing his arms. He didn't hear the words. He only saw that smile on the deleted photograph. It was their secret, their silent conspiracy against him. When Vika, sobbing, left for the other room, Artem slowly walked to the window. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from Maxim. "Sorry, brother." Artem deleted it without opening. The apartment emptied. Vika went to her sister's. Maxim vanished from his life as if he had never existed. Artem was left alone in the silence. He walked through the rooms. His living room, his kitchen, his bedroom. Now they were just walls soaked in a lie. He didn't feel the rage to smash dishes. He didn't feel the sorrow to cry. He felt only a clean, sterile emptiness, as if they had removed not his heart, but his inner compass. What had he lost? His wife? His friend? No, he had lost the ground beneath his feet. He had lost his own grasp of what was true and what was false. He had lost his ability to trust. Artem looked at the car keys lying on the table. He didn't need this apartment. He didn't need the memories. This place, this city, this life, it had all become an exclusion zone. He grabbed a small backpack, put in his passport, some cash, and a spare t-shirt. He walked out of the apartment, locked the door behind him, and went down the stairs without looking back. It was not the end. It was a blank slate white, cold, and terrifying. He got into the old Mazda that he and Vika had bought on credit and just drove. He didn't turn on the radio or check the navigation. He needed the movement to drown out the static, all-consuming silence that remained within him after their conversation. He drove all night. Black trees, the sparse lights of gas stations, and signs with the names of cities that meant nothing to him flashed past. Physical exhaustion became a gift it delayed, the moment when he would have to stop and start thinking again. At dawn, he stopped at a small motel on the edge of some forgotten town that smelled of dust and wet asphalt. He rented the cheapest room, which was so unlike his former bedroom that it brought a strange, perverse relief. Simple walls, a worn-out bed, the smell of cheap, unfamiliar chemicals. Their history was not here. Artem collapsed onto the bed and closed his eyes. For the first time in many hours, the ice began to melt, replaced by a dull, aching pain. It wasn't the pain of losing a loved one. It was the pain of realizing that he had been blind, foolish, and weak. He slept until evening, and when he woke up, the world was different. Darkness outside the window, the humming of an old air conditioner, and absolute freedom. A freedom that felt like isolation. He sat on the windowsill. The city below lived its own life. Cars rushed, shop windows glowed, people went home. And none of them knew Artem. No one was waiting. No one demanded he be Artem the husband or Artem the friend. He could be anyone. This realization was the first glimmer of light. He took out his laptop and for the first time in years opened not his work email, but old files. There were his student projects, architectural sketches, bold, unrealized ideas about building eco-settlements. Projects he had put aside when he got a good, stable job for the sake of the mortgage, for Vika, for the sake of adult life. He hadn't just lost them. He had lost the self who dreamed, not just existed. Artem closed the laptop. He went outside and inhaled the cold night air. He found a small, all-night convenience store, bought paper, pencils, and a thermos. He needed something to do. He needed to build. He returned to the motel and began sketching. The hours merged into one long, continuous flow. He drew a new house, but not the one he shared with Vika. He drew a house that only one person could build. A house on stilts in the mountains, completely self-sufficient. He poured all the pain that couldn't escape as tears into those lines. By dawn, the blueprint was ready. It wasn't just a drawing. It was an escape plan. Artem didn't know how he would do it. He had little money, no connections. But for the first time in days, he felt not emptiness, but direction. His inner compass, broken and frozen, began to slowly, barely noticeably, turn. He looked at his hands. They were covered in graphite dust. They were working. They were creating. He was no longer a victim. He was a builder. He took a picture of the blueprint. Tomorrow, he would sell the car, buy a ticket somewhere south, and start looking for work on a construction site. Any job just to keep moving. He sent a message to his work email, resigning, due to personal circumstances. Account access is blocked. He didn't wait for a reply.